My name is Benjamin Nagger. I'm a postulant with the Capuchin Franciscans. I've been a postulant now for about 6 months. It's been good. There's a lot of challenges. It's a new way of life for me, for anybody that comes into into religious life. Overall, it's been a blessing, but yeah, some ups and downs. Yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. It's rewarding. Before the Capuchins, most recently, I was living in Nashville, Tennessee. So I had moved there in 2019 to go to school. And I went to Belmont University to study audio engineering and did that for 3 years in school. And then I started working for 3 more years after that at the same company, but I was an audio tech. So a lot of time just playing around with gear, microphones and speakers, comms units and all that kind of stuff, and also going to shows and like setting gear up for people. And yeah, sort of a service-oriented job in a lot of ways. Yeah, I was an audio engineer. Loved that. Loved being around music. Nashville's a fun city. But then there were several events in my life that just started to make my faith become a lot more important to me, a lot more central to who I was. And I started just reading some different books. I guess I read one by Thomas Merton called The Seven-Story Mountain, and I sort of discovered religious life that way. And then it was this whole thing of like, wow, there's so many different like orders. There's monks, there's friars. Like what do I want to be? Like, how do you find something? Um, and over time, I started discovering more Franciscan saints, specifically like Padre Pio, Maximilian Kolbe, and of course Saint Francis himself. Um, Now, there was only one of those that was a Capuchin, um, but that I think as I learned more about Padre Pio, I wanted to learn more about the Capuchins, and that kind of led me down this path of being like, well, I'll check these guys out. My story is maybe kind of unique in that I didn't actually meet a Capuchin friar in person before I decided to apply. I'd heard about Capuchins. I looked them up online. I found videos, but I'd never actually met a Capuchin in my life. So just kind of doing my own research online. I decided to reach out to the vocations director and yeah, went on a come and see weekend and then decided to apply. And I guess 6 months after that, I was a postulant. I was living in a friary and doing ministry, and now we're here 6 months after that. I grew up Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic in a small town in rural Missouri. Growing up, I didn't even really know that there were religious. I mean, I knew we went to mass on Sundays, and there was a priest, and you might occasionally see a deacon, but I would be an altar server. But it wasn't like something that I saw often. Like I didn't really consider religious life. Maybe I would have considered like the priesthood, but it wasn't, I guess, my primary thought in the back of my mind. It wasn't something I was completely closed off to. It was there. I was aware of it. Didn't know about religious life, but I knew about holy orders, like becoming an ordained priest or deacon. Yeah, I guess going back a little bit there, even like to my childhood. Um, I guess where I started hearing about Saint Francis, and he was always kind of the nature saint. They always show him with whatever birds or the wolves and everything. And I grew up in a very country family. We started out kind of raising birds like chickens. We'd have turkeys and ducks around, and then eventually that turned into goats, just a few, which grew into 30 or more. Now there's even more that my family has, and cattle as well. So I grew up in like a farming family out on the land, and that's been kind of it's where I grew up really learning about God, just through like just watching life happen, watching creation, and then of course having the foundation of faith as well in the church. That has always been just inspiring for me. It's given me life to be out in nature. And then you find out Francis, on the surface, St. Francis is always kind of this nature saint. Um, but he loved creation. I see him with the birds and the wolves, singing the praises of God, walking through the countryside. And I was like, that's kind of attractive. That's sort of the romantic vision I have in my head of what, a Franciscan would be like. Um, so yeah, I kind of resonated with Francis, his desire to live humbly, to live simply, to live poor. Um, that was always sort of a call for me. So as I started reading later on and kind of discovering religious life through a Trappist monk, Thomas Merton, I kind of discovered the Franciscans as well, and there were different podcasts I would listen to that Franciscans would be talking on, of all the different Franciscan groups, like conventuals or OFMs, and again, still hadn't really found Capuchin yet. But I was attracted to the active life of ministry, and then whenever I learned more about the different Franciscan families, that is whenever I discovered the Capuchins, and I discovered there was more of like a balanced life of prayer, more contemplation, as well balanced with the ministry. When I was living in Nashville, I had sort of a lot of time to myself outside of work, and so I would use that time to pray. I really made my apartment kind of like a space of silence and peace, as much as I could keep it that way. And I would go out and do like service with my parish, help out with the Room in the Inn ministry, serving the homeless population. And sort of those two things brought together, like this contemplative aspect of life along with the active service. And so whenever I found out that there was a religious order that has those two things, I was like, well, this sounds great. I feel like I might be called to this. I'll check it out. Just take a leap of faith and reach out to the vocations director and apply. In my experience, it was great. I'll say that. Before I left to go to the Come and See weekend, like day before, morning of, even kind of that whole week when I was at work, I was like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if I should go do this or not. Like, I don't know if this is for me, whatever, I hadn't even gone yet. Whenever I got there, finally met a Capuchin friar for the first time in person, not just over the phone. We met a Capuchin friar in person who picked me up from the airport. And whenever I got to the friary, it's just like, it's all these brothers and everybody's lively and happy and joyful. And I sort of felt like I had found brothers that I didn't have. So I only have one other sibling, an older sister. And so I never really had brothers. I had other friends around, but I never had brothers. And it just felt like I had found family I didn't know I had. And so that was a very, attractive part of the life and the vocation journey for me. There's vocation sharing. You get to hear about other people's past, where they're at now, where they came from. You get to hear about their lives now in the order. And people from wildly different backgrounds and different careers, different talents, and everybody is there living together in community and get along for the most part. Yeah, it just felt like I had found family I didn't know I had. Here in Milwaukee, my ministry is currently helping out at St. Francis of Assisi Parish, where we are located, and I do a couple things. I help out with religious education for First Communion class. I also help out with OCIA for Christians that are now coming into the church, and I do home visits, communion calls, and just visit with folks who, maybe they've been either family has passed away. Most of them are older, or just on their own now, or there's kind of could be lonelier folks, and you get to spend time with them, bring them the Blessed Sacrament, and be the community that they love, be the St. Francis community to those people. And then I also help out at an assisted living facility here in the Milwaukee area. So I work with a lot of dementia patients there. I get to play music for Mass on Monday afternoons whenever I go to visit that spot, and just visit with lots. A lot of one-on-one time, visiting with residents, visiting with parishioners who don't necessarily get a lot of outside exposure due to their situations. I'll steal this from a brother's homily the other day, was that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Um, going from living on my own with one other roommate to a friary with 13 or 14 other people, it's a big change. And there's also a lot of work to do around the friary. You realize like you can't do everything on your own. So that can be a struggle sometimes, but also you have brothers around. You can always ask for help. It's one way to sort of give up your own pride that like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take care of this for everybody. It's like, no, like if you're struggling, you have brothers around to help you out. And then part of formation is just getting used to the rhythm of life in a friary, in a religious household, between prayer, ministry, spending time together, just with your fraternity. So that's been an adjustment too, but there's blessings with that as well, because you get to discuss what's on your mind with brothers. But there's also a quiet chapel if you need to go and spend time by yourself too. Yeah, for somebody just starting to kind of discern religious life, I'd say if you've found a community you're interested in, get to know them a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to apply right away, but if there's some way you can either get involved with helping out with a ministry that they do, or a way you can just experience their life some way, get to know them better, seek that out. Always keep prayer your focus in your life. Relationship with the Lord always comes, or that's always at the center. So get to know brothers. Be open to, if you're at that stage that you want to apply, just be open to talking to your formators, to your vocation director. And if you're at that very beginning stage where you're joining the life now, you're entering a friary or a monastery for the first time, just be open. One brother told me coming in, just have Marian receptivity. Say, Lord, let it be done according to your will. Be open to what the formators ask of you. Be open to the daily schedule, the daily routine, whatever responsibilities that you may have. In my case, it's funny, a lot of people maybe have this opinion of religious life maybe being very, like, I can't think of what the word would be, just very serious, maybe all the time. Everybody's, like, maybe they picture the friars like walking around with their hoods on all the time, not speaking or anything. It's like, no, there's times that we have our quiet time, our meditation time, but brothers are joyful. Brothers have many talents. There's a lot of things to share. So if you're considering joining religious life, whether it be the Capuchins or any other order or community, like, bring your talents. Everybody's unique. Just because you might be looking at or entering into a certain way of life, you're still a unique person. You have unique talents, unique abilities, and that's always welcome. Like in my case, like I love playing music, and that's come in handy at many different events and functions here. Whereas like other brothers are like great at baking, and everybody appreciates that. Yeah, don't be afraid to bring your talents. Like you don't have to leave that stuff behind. It's welcome here.